I have read the agreement, the final agreement that has been released in the Bourget. And that text, as we knew it would, puts us on a course towards disastrous levels of warming.
Good.
Indeed, it even says in the text itself, what it says is, we note with concern that the commitments that governments have brought do not bring us to 2 degrees Celsius or 1.5 degrees Celsius. But not just with concern. We note this with alarm, and we say that our leaders have shown themselves willing to set our world on fire, and we will not let them. And yet, our mood today, here in front of the Eiffel Tower, earlier at the amazing Red Lines event, is not one of despair, but rather our mood is of a clarifying sense of commitment and purpose. We knew that those were not the real leaders. We knew that the leaders were in the streets, that the leaders were in the fields, that this city is filled with climate heroes. We have heard our leaders say many of the right things over the last 2 weeks of beautiful speeches. And yet, despite their words, they remain trapped in a broken system and a crashing worldview based on dominance of people and the planet, and that worldview simply does not allow them to align their words, their goals with their actions. And so the gap is immense between the rhetoric and the goal of safety and the reality of the epic danger they are allowing to unfold. And the gap is immense between the expressions of solidarity with the most vulnerable and the reality of those leaders consistently putting the interests of the rich and powerful before those interests of the vulnerable and indeed the interests of all of humanity. Now, I did a search. I did a word search on the final text. And the words fossil fuels do not appear once in the text. What that means is that our leaders have none of the courage it takes to stand up to those corporate interests that are responsible for this crisis. They can't even say the words. So it is up to us to do what they so clearly refuse to do, which is stand up to the polluters and make them pay. And we will do this everywhere, using every tool that we can. We will do it in the streets with protests like this, and we will do it in the face of every single polluting project that they decide to try to roll out. We are doing this already, and we're winning. We are winning against the dirty tar sands pipelines like Keystone XL and many other pipelines that have been blocked and are being blocked right now. You did it here in France by winning a ban on fracking. Global movement, some of us call it blockadia, and between the 7th and the 13th of May, it's going to be entering a new stage where we are going after the biggest fossil fuel projects on this planet, from the Philippines to Turkey to Germany to Canada to Australia, Indonesia and Nigeria. So we will take them on in the streets, the forests, and in the water, as the blockadia activists did surrounding Shell's Arctic drilling rig. And we are also going to take them on in the marketplace. We are going to go after their money with the fossil fuel divestment movement, which is growing stronger every year. We're going after them in our schools, in our places of worship, in our cities. And there are some cities, and we hope a growing number of cities, that are declaring themselves fossil-free. That means no new fossil fuel infrastructure, none at all, because it's time to build the infrastructure of the future. And we're going after them with our art, with our culture. We are freeing our museums and our concert halls from toxic fossil fuel sponsorship. And also our universities, and all of this means that we need public funding for the arts, for education, for healthcare, because as we know, the logic of austerity is incompatible with life on Earth. Chipping away at the power of the fossil fuel sector that is standing in the way of change and is the reason our politicians have failed us at Le Creuset. But that is only half of what we're doing. Because we are also, as we try to put an end to an economy that is based on digging up the fossilized remains of other life forms, we are accelerating the rollout of a society based on protecting life. The basis of this transition is energy democracy, not just switching from Exxon selling us solar panels. It is about communities owning and controlling their own renewable energy. And it's also about those communities, indigenous communities of color, who have been poisoned under the current extractive model, being first in line for energy democracy, and that is energy justice. As we go forward, we also have to acknowledge that there is very real grief that we will not deny, nor will we suppress, grief at what we have already lost, or who we have already lost. And we acknowledge that there is also rage at those who could have acted long ago, but chose not to. And at those who make that same disastrous decision still. But mostly there is joy. Mostly there is joy and resolve as we witness the next world taking place before our eyes, shaped before our eyes. We used to think that it was our job to save the world. Then we realized that we are really saving ourselves. We used to say that we were here to protect nature. And now we say that we are nature, protecting herself. Merci beaucoup, Paris.
Avant, nous disions que nous protégeons la nature, et aujourd'hui, nous disons nous sommes la nature qui se protège elle-même.